I'm here with Xavier Bobés, who is an object theatre artist. And could you define for us, because object theatre is such a unique niche type of theatre, what it is? I know what it's not mime and it's not puppetry.
Yeah, sometimes it's really difficult to define because it can be very different from depending of the point of view of the artist. Object theatre, it means generally that the main issue of research are the objects, which means anything that is around us, that's around us in our everyday life. Yes, that maybe is not something that you build up or you create for an exhibition. It's something that maybe has a story, something that you are like thinking maybe can tell us something about us. Yes, and after that, what you do with it is you play, you research, you look for the way they can tell you things from the movement, from the installation point of view, from a kind of little, maybe kind of drama, little story, but maybe not in a sense that you will expect that they are telling you a story properly. In another way, yes, more metaphorical, like a poet, poetry.
And how do you choose your objects? Because I know, for example, you have chosen objects that are often historical or similar to antiques. And the show that we perform together, they are sculptures. So how do you get drawn towards one group of objects?
That's really the main focus of the creation. When you choose an object, it takes you to a way in a place that you never know what's going to happen. And in this case, for Corpus, actually it was really strong because working with sculptures, they don't have a memory, but they project lots of possibilities of memories because it comes like a portrait. Yes? Yeah, more like that because they are like pieces of human sculpture, no?
Yeah.
And they dialogue with another kind of thing that I think is very important, that are logs and vegetable, how would you say?
Nature, objects from nature,
Exactly.
branches,
Exactly.
logs.
Which are also kind of, well, objects where you take them from the environment where they come from, you place them in a stage, and they become something that talks about nature in this case, and the contrast between them, the sculptures and the natural, yes, remnants or things, they make a kind of landscape together. That was really interesting thing to see. That's why, yes, we talk and we say that this is kind of like a cabana, because we just place them in the place and we try to well, to kind of imagine what they tell us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because you talk so much about listening to the objects, and we all presume that objects are mute. And so I like to compare it to the idea of a distiller. A distiller takes a plant and takes out the soul, the essence of the plant, and makes it live in an essential oil, for example. Or a shaman who would listen to a plant and give it life. And I love this idea of you listening to objects and allowing them to have another life from what they have already been used for.
Exactly. It's completely similar. It's an alchemist.
Yeah.
It's a process that has a lot to do with listening, waiting, and time. You cannot expect that in 1 week you will have a partiture. You know,
A score.
it took, yeah, exactly. It takes time. It takes ways to go to the place, change points of view, because actually the objects, the materials, they have a way to express themselves. and we need time to discover that. Yes, it's like any kind of fragrance, I think.
Or relationship.
Exactly. Oh, I don't know why this thing is always here, or why these things are always, depending of the period of time you are. Maybe you tend to have more things, other ones. Also, you can see that in people. Yeah, somebody that has, I don't know, they come with lots of things in the back and they don't use any
Like
at
their own
all.
tea bags.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but it's a wonderful way of discover oneself, what we are thinking and what we are wishing. That's why in workshops we always work with our own materials, starting from our bag, from our desk, from our wardrobe, the pockets. It's very metaphorical because they are there, but we don't listen to them on the way that we do on the stage, because if not, we will become crazy, yes, if we start looking at everything. But when we play in object theatre, we change the point of view. The focus is not anymore, the main focus is not in the performer, it's more in the objects, in the part, how do you say, the score of the performance, the movement, the music, and what happens,
and the story, or the if a story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's also this idea of objects and the objects that we carry around with ourselves, knowingly or completely unconsciously, and also in terms of obviously materialism, and now there's the minimalism movements of living, and austerity, which is seemingly a negative word, all conservative governments are austere, but actually an austere lifestyle or a minimalist lifestyle with an element of consciousness about objects is very interesting. How do you feel about that with your relationship? How would you interpret that?
I usually think, and I usually say, less is more. And I think this is something that we know in art, no? What you can say in one word, you don't need to tell 50 sentences. Like in a stage is the same with things, with objects. Sometimes, and with gestures. Sometimes you take one thing and you show it like that, or you move it and you make a pose, and it can give you a complete portrait of this thing between you and the observer, the audience, and I think that's very important. That's why minimalism, or you have to be very conscious of how much information you give to the observer, so they can have a transcription also of in their own imaginary what's going on.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes it's much more powerful to see a space completely empty.
Yeah.
Just one thing there, or something crossing, or something moving, opening. Yes, because we start creating a language, and this is really, it's like learning a new language. You need to understand it little by little. If not, you get lost, and then you switch off.
Yeah. No, and I have noticed that in your work it does completely draw you in. It is a very you realise that you don't have to understand something. You're not trying to work it out. You're just letting images sort of wash over you in a way. It's a very sort of balming language.
Yeah, because
I find.
for me, I think we all share a kind of background. Our imagination is different in all of us, but we share things. We live in a world, we have families, we have lived lots of different experiences through the age of each of us. So maybe we don't look at the things in the same way, but we have lots of things in common.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like a universal.
Exactly. So at the end, I think we just need the way to have this kind of bridge between you and me, and that's something to do with poetry, metaphorical way of to interpret images, life. And I think there are two things very important. One is mischievous, something that is there but gives you a kind of curiosity, makes you to feel curious about it.
Yeah,
because
you've got that hook. That's
yes,
that
exactly.
question.
And mysterious is in life. There are so many things that we cannot understand from our head. We need to believe, and when you believe, you leave an open door there, and there are lots of things that can happen. Yeah, through emotions, through also intellectual stuff. Because if not, you are always, narrow-minded. You become poorer in your imagination, in your everyday life. Because things, if you don't let yourself surprise for such a long while, you can discover things until the last day of life.
Yeah. And one thing as well that's I also feel drawn towards your work is the level of intimacy that it encourages, because Xavier's last piece was for 5 spectators, and the piece that we do together, Corpus, is for 25. And obviously nowadays the idea of success is having, you know, a concert hall or a theatre, a huge theatre completely full, and also the way concert halls and festivals program, they obviously need to make money, and so there is this element of we need big audiences to actually keep the festival alive or whatever. And your work is it's just a different idea, a different concept of that. What draws you and keeps drawing you back to intimacy in the theatre?
It's something that I realized after working for a long time, for 10 years, 15 years, that I couldn't do it in another way. I mean, I tried and I did, but there's something lost from distance.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have to start working with projections, or maybe you can manipulate big stuff, but there's something physical, yes? Things that we carry with us have the size of our hands, yes? Maybe we can carry a chair, and I perform with chairs and with furniture, but actually objects have another dimension in everyday life. They are this size, we carry them. If people are too far from this, they lose lots of information. I think I don't want them to be here. I like to be there, that they have a kind of distance, but also it's necessary that they have the opportunity to share with you this first point of view. And I think intimacy, another way, we are losing the capacity of being together, like 25 people is not such a little people.
No.
And
it's a nice size group.
Yes, and people can see it properly. They can feel that they are part of the show, that they are not too far. So I prefer to perform twice, like we do sometimes. We can do it. The show is quite 45 minutes, 50 minutes, is very short.
So it's 2 shows in one afternoon.
In one afternoon, and it's the number of people, I think they can enjoy it very well, because they can see details, they can listen to the music really properly.
Yeah.
They don't need amplifiers, they don't need projections, they can even smell, or I don't know now, but they can really feel the little noises that they do when I sit down, when I'm breathing.
Breath as well, yeah. No, like you say, it's this feeling of making people feel part of what's happening, and not the question for a lot of staged events is, the performer is separate from the spectator.
Exactly.
And this kind of hierarchy that therefore
and it's
ensues.
what you said. It's not about mime or big effects. I've worked with also projections and stuff, but everyday life, I realize every day, and more, that little things are really the ones that matter. Because it's what we do. What we do at home is we just spend time in front of the mirror, we do little gestures, and I like to play with this kind of imaginary, because this is when somebody can tell themselves, oh, that's a little bit me.
Yeah. Thank you, Xavi.
You're welcome.